He murdered his great-grandmother for $133. In 2012, 13-year-old Antonio Barbo and his best friend Nathan Papp both murdered his great-grandmother in the most horrific way. On that day, Antonio's mother drove the kids to her grandmother's house, 78-year-old Barbara Olson, but she had no idea what they were about to do. The two teens tried to sneak into Barbara's house, but then she heard them, so she invited them inside. Once Barbara turned around, her great-grandson hit her with a hatchet. Barbara was hit 27 times and had wounds all over her hands and arms, indicating that she tried to defend herself. The teens stole Barbara's jewelry along with $155 and then used that money to buy drugs and pizza. They tried to drag Barbara's body into her car, but when they couldn't pick her up, they just left her in the garage. Barbara's body was found 2 days later by her own daughter, and the boys were arrested not long after. Nathan argues that he thought Antonio was just joking about murdering his own great-grandmother, and he only participated because he was afraid that Antonio would turn on him. Antonio's grandmother, who's also the victim's daughter, spoke out and said that her mother was not a vindictive person and she would have wanted Antonio to have another chance at life. And Antonio's defense really tried to argue that he had a brain injury back in 2009 and that's the reason he did what he did. But none of that mattered because both of these teenagers were sentenced to life in prison and are eligible for parole in 2048.
That was the last time, the last time.
What happens when a serial killer kidnaps the most dangerous woman in the world? Freedia Gibbs is the first Black female kickboxing world champion. But as a kid, she was always bullied and didn't know how to fight back. One day, they even chased her home. So her mom gave her a broom and told her this:
"You don't beat that ass, I'ma beat your ass, so you're gonna get 2 ass whippings."
Her uncle then taught her martial arts, and she became a professional kickboxer. But one day, she came face to face with the Grim Sleeper, a murderer who killed over 100 women. But things were different now. Freedia wasn't a scared little girl anymore. She knew how to fight.
He's like, "Now let me just stick it in, then I'll take you home." And I said no, and I was going around, "No, absolutely not." Then he went to swing, boom, and I blocked it. Said, "Oh, so you one of them fighting ones." And I grabbed it in his shirt tail, swung him back, I stepped on his chest and I grabbed his and I said, "Listen, when a says no, she means no." And I walked it, BAM! Then I left.
Guys, I don't know what is wrong with people. Listen to this story. This is 38-year-old Alyssa McCommon, and until just recently, she was a 4th grade English and social studies teacher here at Charter Academy in Covington, Tennessee. And apparently, Alyssa likes her students a little too much. Reports say that on August the 24th, this school district became aware of misconduct with Miss McCommon. They say that a parent came forward with disturbing allegations. The school district says that when they learned about the alleged misconduct on August the 24th, that she was immediately put on leave. She was suspended that day. On Friday, yesterday, she was arrested and charged with essaying a 12-year-old boy back in 2021. Now, the police say that they are looking for more potential victims. Police say that multiple juveniles have come forward saying that Mrs. McCommon initially friended them on social media, and then she began playing video games with them online. And that escalated into her sending inappropriate photos and asking to have relations with them. She has hired an attorney, and he has said that this is just a witch hunt on social media. Now, there are quite a few other allegations in this case. Not going to discuss them here, but there's a Facebook group if you want to go join it. It is called Fayette County's Dirty Little Secrets.
Dorius claimed that he accidentally killed his girlfriend, believing she was an intruder. Let's look at what actually happened. Reva was a South African 29-year-old model and paralegal. Reva was dating her boyfriend of 3 months, Oscar Pistorius, who was a Paralympic athlete. At around 6 p.m. on February the 13th, Riva made her way to his house in South Africa. In the early hours of Valentine's Day 2013, Oscar shot her 4 times through a locked bathroom door. This included a fatal shot to her head. He then broke down the bathroom door with a bat and called police. Oscar claimed that he thought she was an intruder. He claimed he was hot in the night and wanted to get a fan to cool him down. While doing this, he heard a noise in the bathroom that he assumed was an intruder. He said he grabbed his gun and shouted to Riva to call police. He claimed that he did not notice that she wasn't actually in bed next to him. However, neighbours reported hearing a couple arguing around 2 a.m. They also heard a woman screaming at around 3 a.m. when the shooting took place. Texts between the pair are also very telling. Riva sent him this text after they'd attended a party together. Now you can pause to read, but I am just going to read out some bits that I think are very significant. She said, "You have picked on me incessantly since you got back from Cape Town, and I understand that you are sick, but it's nasty." She also includes a bit that he was accusing her of flirting. And shockingly, she says, "I am scared of you sometimes and how you snap at me and how you will react to me." Heartbreakingly, at the end of the message, she states, "I just want to love and be loved." After Riva's death, Oscar's ex, Samantha Taylor, came forward. She claimed that he would get angry at her for little things like not bringing her plate into the kitchen. He would also be jealous and possessive. In 2014, he was found guilty of culpable homicide. He was only sentenced to 5 years in prison. However, in December 2015, the Supreme Court overruled this verdict. He was then convicted of murder and sentenced to 6 years in prison. This was then extended to 13 years.
Light out, everybody. It is
There has been an absolutely horrific murder this week that was live streamed on Instagram. This case is extremely disturbing, so please be warned before watching. On Friday, 12,000 people watched a Bosnian bodybuilder kill his wife on Instagram Live. 35-year-old Nermin had been abusing his wife during their marriage, and the pair had a young child. On Friday morning, he took to Instagram Live to tell his followers that they could witness a live killing. Absolutely horrifically, he turns the camera to his ex, whose face is completely covered in blood and disfigured. He calls her a derogatory name and blames her for her own death because she reported him to police. Disturbingly, you can hear the child crying in the background. He then tells his followers that he's the child's father and his ex had hidden the toddler from him for over a week and reported him to police for DV. So, in my opinion, yes, she's taking steps to keep her and her child safe from you. After shooting his wife in the head on Instagram, he then goads his followers saying, "Someone come and save the child." A police chase then began and he went on a shooting rampage. He continued to film and tells his viewers that he's killed 2 other people who actually turned out to be an innocent man and his young son. He also wounded a police officer, another man and a woman while on the run. He ended up unaliving himself on the same day.
I hope this reaches the right people because this little girl's life is in danger. This is allegedly a serious Munchausen by proxy situation. This is that little girl's mother, Jessica Gasser, aka @MedicalMamaJess on TikTok. She had about 25,000 followers before she deleted her account. Jessica was arrested last Friday after a months-long investigation. This is what the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office posted yesterday morning. Investigators believe Jessica Gasser had multiple unnecessary medical procedures performed on her 3-year-old child. She recently sent messages to a friend stating she would delete all social media posts about her child's health, including private messages. This is Jessica's Etsy shop, Enchanted to Be Tapes. On July 11th, I believe, she posted this update to her shop. "We are on vacation mode due to a family emergency. Don't know if or when we'll be back. Thank you for your patience." That family emergency was Jessica getting arrested. Now let me go through the timeline of what police are alleging. In early February of this year, someone at Cook's Children's Hospital contacted police after learning that Jessica had taken her daughter, her 3-year-old daughter, to see multiple doctors in Texas, Ohio, and Louisiana. Multiple people at various hospitals told police that Jessica appeared to be, quote, doctor shopping to get what she wanted. That same month, Jessica started a GoFundMe to get money for a procedure for her daughter. She claimed that her daughter had a rare medical condition, but police said she was never diagnosed with that condition. In March, a doctor at McLean Children's Medical Center allegedly caught Jessica, quote, venting her daughter's feeding bag. meaning Jessica was preventing her daughter from being fed. Jessica was caught doing this several times after her daughter wasn't exhibiting the symptoms Jessica said she had, allegedly. 2 months later, police got a search warrant for her social media. They found out that sometime in October 2022, she was reported to CPS. She then wrote to another user, quote, "Deleted all TikTok posts and I'm gonna take down Instagram, and I deleted all posts and working on Facebook messages. They can search messages with a warrant." She also allegedly searched Tarrant County medical abuse cases, how to fix Munchausen by proxy, and is lying to a doctor about a child illegal. When Jessica's child was removed from her for a few weeks and was being cared for by another person, that child began to physically thrive. The investigators, and this little girl especially, really needs your help because Jessica deleted all of her social media accounts and activity. If you have screenshots, videos of anything that Jessica posted relating to her daughter's health that she said, please send it to detectives. Again, her username was Medical Mama Jess, and her name is Jessica Gasser.
This kid jumped up! Oh my God! Oh, bye-bye! Oh, that's it! And the buoy!
And that's the disturbing footage of this teen who apparently encountered a shark before going missing. On May 24th, 18-year-old Cameron Robbins was celebrating his high school graduation on a cruise ship in the Bahamas when he jumped into the water and then disappeared. At around 9:40 p.m., Cameron was dared to jump into the water near Athol Island, which is said to be filled with sharks. After watching the footage, you kind of see some sort of figure approaching Cameron in the water and then him trying to swim the opposite way before disappearing. Cameron was searched for 2 full days and 325 square miles was covered, but his body was not found.
Aisha Degree was only 9 years old when she walked out of her Shelby, North Carolina home on Valentine's Day 2000. It wasn't the best night for a walk, especially for a 9-year-old girl at 3 in the morning. Aisha walked down Highway 18, a 2-lane county road surrounded by open fields and trees. She headed southbound towards Shelby and was spotted between 3:45 and 4:15 by a passing motorist and a truck driver. She wasn't hard to miss. Even in the stormy darkness, her long-sleeved white t-shirt and white pants stood out. The trucker kept moving but radioed to his fellow drivers, warning them about a little girl walking along the highway. Meanwhile, the motorist turned around and drove back to see if she was okay, but when he approached Aisha, her stranger danger lessons kicked in and she ran into the woods. Her mother, Iquilla's alarm went off around 5:45 a.m. Valentine's Day doubled as her and her husband Harold's wedding anniversary. But before they could celebrate, they had to get the kids ready for school. She drew the kids' bath and walked into their room to wake them, but Aisha was gone. A few days later, several candy wrappers and some of Aisha's personal items were found in a shed along the highway, less than 2 miles away, very close to the last place she was spotted. These items included her pencils, the marker, and her Mickey Mouse bow, which Iquilla recognized as her daughter's. But they found something else strange in that shed, a wallet-sized photo of a little girl, but it wasn't Aisha. In fact, no one in the area recognized her, not even the teachers at the elementary school. Maybe if they figured out what else Aisha took with her, they might find a clue about where she was going. Iquilla tore through her daughter's belongings and realized her favorite pieces of clothing were missing, including a pair of jeans with a decorative red stripe. Aisha clearly didn't leave in a hurry. She had time to think about this, plan it even. She took her favorite clothes, enough to last a few days out in the world, but she didn't take her coat. We can't say for sure if the candy wrappers belonged to her, but it tracks for a 9-year-old thinking about how to feed herself. What made her disappearance even stranger is that she wasn't normally so independent. She had a brother named O'Brien who was only a year older than her, and they shared a bedroom in the family's small suburban home. Harold returned home from work a little after midnight. The first thing he did was check on the kids, who were sound asleep in their beds. It was a late night for him. He turned in sometime around 2:30. He checked on the kids one more time before finally hitting the sack. O'Brien woke up after his dad left the room and recalled hearing Aisha roll over in bed. He didn't think much of it and just went back to sleep.
The co-founder of Salt Life was recently sentenced for the killing of his girlfriend. The man I'm about to talk about is literally the reason you see all of these stickers. He coined the term Salt Life and co-founded the company. In October of 2020, 54-year-old Michael Hutto booked a room at an oceanfront resort on Singer Island, and with him was his 18-year-old girlfriend, Laura Grace Duncan, who had just graduated from high school months prior. After spending time at the beach, the couple went back to the hotel room. According to Michael, they were playing around and started to pretend to shoot each other with finger guns. Then Michael pulled out a real gun. He said Grace was sitting on the bathroom counter when he pointed the gun at her and it went off. He claimed it was an accident. Instead of calling 911, Michael left with the weapon and a backpack, while Grace was left bleeding to death on the bathroom floor. He also left his wallet and ID behind. He then drove 280 miles to a gas station. He reportedly walked in and asked the attendant for help. He was also twitching, crying, and making delusional comments, and his eyes were rolling into the back of his head. Michael was taken to the hospital for a reported overdose. By the following morning, Grace's parents hadn't heard from her for 48 hours. And on the morning of the 29th, Grace's father asked for a welfare check. He tracked her phone to the hotel. Even from down the hallway, the police could tell that there was a decomposing body inside of that hotel room, because Grace had been left there for hours and hours. She was fatally shot in the stomach by Michael. When police went back to the hospital to talk to Michael, he immediately started confessing. He said, "Oh my God, I think I hurt my Gracie." He was arrested the next day after being discharged from the hospital for manslaughter and a weapons violation. So you're probably wondering how an 18-year-old girl and a man in his mid-50s got into a relationship. Michael was married with 4 children when he met Grace at a gym where she worked. I don't know how long the relationship had been going on by October of 2020, but on the 25th, she texted her parents that she and Michael were traveling to meet his friends. And the point of that was those friends could help them start a business. Grace's parents reported her missing the next day. Officers came to their house, and Grace called her parents while they were there. Over the phone, she reportedly said that everything was fine, but her parents said she sounded drugged and vulnerable. Grace called her parents one last time to say that they were headed for the Keys, and it would be just a couple days later that she would be found deceased in Michael's hotel room. Last week, Michael pleaded guilty to manslaughter, and he was sentenced to 12 years in prison.
This woman paid child support to her daughter's father for 13 years, completely unaware that he'd actually murdered her at the age of 6. This story is actually unbelievable, and one of the defendants is actually now facing the death penalty. On January 28, 2012, the skeletal remains of a young child were found at Brookhaven Trailer Park in Opelika, Alabama. Detectives determined that the remains belonged to an African-American girl aged 4 to 7 years old, and it was evident that she'd been abused prior to her death. Her bones showed evidence of breaks that had healed, she was malnourished, and she had an injury to her left eye socket. Forensic artists created this image of what she may have looked like, and she became known as the Opelika Jane Doe or Baby Jane Doe. It took years and years and lots of tests at the University of South Florida, and finally in 2017 it was determined that she lived in the southeast of the United States. The Opelika Police Department then teamed up with Othram Laboratories to use advanced DNA testing and genetic genealogy. A comprehensive genealogical profile was uploaded to a database, and finally in January 2023 the identity of Jane Doe was revealed. The remains belonged to 6-year-old Amor Javea Wiggins, who lived with her father and stepmother. Amor's mother, Sherry Wiggins, lived in Maryland, and she provided police with documents that showed that Amor's father and stepmother, Lamar and Ruth, had obtained legal custody of her in 2009, and it was at this time that contact with Amor's mother stopped. Despite not being allowed to see her daughter, she'd continuously paid child support since 2009. On January 17, 2023, Lamar and Ruth were arrested, and in March a hearing was held. Ruth claims that she'd become overwhelmed at having to look after Amor, so she'd asked Lamar to take her to live with family members, and that was the last time that she'd seen her. Lamar has actually confessed to murdering Amor, but says he didn't inflict any of the injuries prior to her death, and he's asked that Ruth not be charged in her murder. Ruth has since been bailed, and she has to wear an ankle monitor while she awaits trial. She's facing up to 10 years in prison. Lamar, however, was refused bail and he remains in custody. The trial's ongoing and he faces life imprisonment or the death penalty. I'll keep an eye on the case and obviously update with any developments in the comments.